Hey everyone, it's Matt here with Nightrun Studio, and in this final part of our skill tree series, we're going to look at how to add 3 final features. First off, we're going to look at how to make it so that when you do something like gaining a level, you get more ability points to spend. Secondly, we'll make it so that these skills actually do something. I'll give 2 examples in this video, how to change a stat like your maximum health, as well as how to enable a new ability like a special attack power. And finally, we'll add a toggle so that you can turn this panel on and off with a button press. All right, let's get started. All right, so first stop in this video is to make it so that we can gain ability points when we do something like leveling up. If you've got a different system set up, you can just go to whatever you want to award you with ability points and use the same code in that location. So let's open up our experience manager here, as this is where I want to get my ability points from. So first off, we just need to notify any listening scripts anytime we want to actually gain ability points, in my case, when I level up. So let's begin by creating a public static event action. We're going to be passing in an integer, which is the number of ability points we want to get. Finally, we'll give this a name. I'm going to call mine onLevelUp. Now to get rid of that error message, we just have to add the namespace, letting the script know that we are using system. With the event created, we now just need to notify any listeners when we actually level up. I'll be doing this in my level up method. And here, just right at the bottom, we're just gonna go on level up, add a question mark. We can then put a period and just invoke it. In the brackets here, we're just gonna pass however many ability points we want to get. You could add logic here to have different points passed along on different conditions, but I just wanna get 1 point each level. Now over in our skill tree manager, we've already created an update ability points method that we use to take our points away when we spend them. We'll be using that here in order to add the points as well. So let's just come up to our onEnable method. And once this enables, we're just gonna tell it that we want it to subscribe to Experience Manager's onLevelUp event. We can then copy that line, head to onDisable, and unsubscribe. Now, anytime we level up, the update ability points method will be called, giving us 1 ability point. Now currently we have no way in game to toggle our menu, so I'm just gonna click on the canvas and set its alpha to 0 so we can see what's happening. Now when I get in the game, I can go around and I'll have to actually level up, so I'll just quickly defeat these goblins. And now once I gain a complete level, I can open my menu again by changing the alpha back to 1, and you'll notice that my points are now up to 6. Okay, so now that we can gain ability points, let's make it so they do something other than just turn on icons. For my first example, I'll show how to add to our max health. So first off, I'm just gonna head into my stats manager. If you've been following along in this series, you should have the same script. If not, you should be able to do this for whatever script you use to manage your health points. Now up to this point, we've just been directly modifying stats from other scripts whenever needed. However, we're gonna start moving in a direction of something a little more robust. I also wanna make it so that our stats manager has the ability to change our user interface. So to begin, let's just add the using TM-Pro namespace. And now we're just gonna make a public TMP text reference. We'll call this health text, and this is how we'll be able to actually change our max health on screen whenever the stat itself changes. We're gonna create a new method here, which we're gonna call update max health. We'll give it an integer, which will take in the amount we want to change our health by. Now, inside of this update max health method, we're just gonna make it so that our max health is increased by whatever amount is, and we'll make our health text's text update so that it shows both current and max health. And the method I'll be using is HP:current health / max health. Now, if any other script ever wants to modify our max health, it just needs to call this update max health method and pass in a number, and that will also update it in our UI. Now, back in Unity, let's just hook this up. Mine is on my stats manager object, and I've got a box there now for my health text. I'll just click on my player UI and drag over my health text into that box. At this point, we're now ready to actually make it so that our skills update the max health when we click on them. To do this, I'm going to create one more script for this skill tree. We're going to call this one Skill Manager, as it will be what actually manages each individual skill we want to add. Now for the moment at least, this is going to be a pretty simple script. What we really just need at this point is to be notified when an ability point is spent and to know what ability is actually being upgraded. So to do this, we want to get information from our skill slot, which calls this onAbilityPointsSpent method. You'll notice when it invokes, it sends over itself as a reference, which is how we're gonna know which skill is being leveled up. So then, in our onEnable method, we're just gonna subscribe to skill slot's onAbilityPointsSpent event. And whenever we're notified that an ability point has been spent, we're gonna call the handleAbilityPointsSpent method. We'll then unsubscribe by copying this into the onDisabled method and just changing it to a negative. We can now create the handle ability points spent method. And remember, this one's just going to be taking in a skill slot reference, which we can just call slot. So first, we just want to find out what skill is being upgraded. To do that, we're going to create a new string variable called skill name. And it's just going to look for the skill's name by looking at the slot, finding its skill scriptable object, and then just looking there for the name of the skill. Now that we've stored the skill's name, we're just going to create sort of a library of different skills that can be upgraded, and we'll sort through that library to find the one that matches this skill name. Now we could do this with a wild set of if statements, but if statements can get messy fast, and so here we're going to introduce a switch case method instead. So we can just type a switch. In this case, our switch will be the skill name, and then we'll come up with a bunch of different cases that could possibly happen. Now for our first case, we want to print in here the name of our skill that will upgrade our max health. If I pop back into Unity and go into my skills folder, I can see that I've created one, the first one in fact, on my skill tree, and it's called Max Health Boost. I'm just going to copy that name exactly. Now I'm just going to paste it in inside of quotation marks, and I've created my first possible case. We'll then add a colon, and underneath we can add as many lines of logic as we want, though fortunately ours is only going to take one. Here we're just going to talk to our stat manager.instance and tell it that we want to run its update max health method. And in this case, I want to update by 1 each time. We then just type in break, which will break off the switch statements so that it doesn't keep looking through the library because it knows it's already found its match. We're then just going to add a little defensive check here, which is to create a default. This is what will run anytime the switch statements are unable to find a case that matches what we're searching. So especially if you've mistyped a name or something like that. Here we're just going to type a debug.log warning. And then in quotation marks, we're just going to say unknown skill colon. And here I'm just going to add the skill name. That way we'll know exactly which skill it's having trouble finding if there's an error. We'll also just add a break one more time so that it knows this loop is complete. Next, I'm just going to click on my skill canvas and make sure that we've added the skill manager so that it can actually run. And we can test. And with that done, each time I click on my HP boost, you can see that my max health is indeed going up by 1. All right, that's working pretty well. Now you can add all kinds of skills and abilities, but I want to show one more example of how you could unlock a skill potentially. For this case, let's actually disable my ability to attack, saying that only once trained will the player actually be able to attack. So I could do this by unclicking the player combat method here and disabling it. Now when I get in the game, I'll notice that I can no longer attack. The enemy can still hurt me, but I have no way of fighting back. Now let's say that I just need to get a skill that gives me this ability to fight back before I can in fact do that. Obviously, this might not be the skill you want to use, but this can be a way that you unlock things like ranged attacks or magic attacks. So to do this, we need to create a skill that will be able to toggle this combat ability. So let's head into our skills, right-click, and go to creating a skill. Let's call this combat unlock, say, and then over here, I suppose the actual name of this ability could be sword slash. Let's give it a max level of 1 and select a sprite. I'm just going to go with this dark icon here because I don't have anything better. So now I'll just go into my skills canvas, into the combat tree as that's where this skill is, and I'm just going to use this very first box here. We can now just simply drag that combat unlock into the skill scriptable object. I want to make sure that it's unlocked, otherwise I won't actually be able to click on it when I get in the game. And now we just need to make sure that we actually create the ability to unlock this skill. So let's head back into our skill manager where we can create a new case. In this case, I'm going to add the sword slash ability. We'll just give that a colon, and now we can describe what we want to happen. Now, in order to unlock or enable the combat ability, we need a reference to that script. So let's just come up top where we can create a public player combat reference, and we'll just call this one combat. Now, in order to enable that ability, we just go combat.enabled equals true. We can then break the switch so that it does not keep working its way through. And I just added an extra colon here that we didn't need. Now I'm just going to click on my skills canvas and make sure that I drag a reference to the combat script into the skill manager. The script is on my player, so I can just put him in that box. Now when I get in the game, I'll just turn my alpha off on this canvas so I can see what's happening. And now even if I repeatedly push the attack button, he is unable to attack. We can then go into my canvas here. I'll just turn it back on, click on that ability. You'll see that it upgraded the icon. And now when I go back into the game, now when I push attack, he actually does something. All right, that's working out well. The only thing remaining at this point, though, is just the annoying fact that we keep having to manually turn our canvas on and off. So let's fix that next. Now, if you've been following the entire RPG series, you'll already have the ability to toggle your stats menu by pushing a key on the keyboard. We're going to set up something pretty similar for our skill tree as well. Now, the first thing we're going to do is just set up our buttons. So we're going to go to Edit, Project Settings, and head to our Input Manager. Here at the bottom, you can see I've created my Toggle Stats button, which is toggled with the button number 1. Now we just need to make one to toggle our skill tree as well. So up top here, I'm just going to make an exact copy of this by adding one more digit to our axes here. This will make a copy of the last entry, which was our Toggle Stats. This one will be Toggle Skill Tree, and I'm going to use button number 2. This will create a sort of hotkey situation for our menus where each number across the top of the keyboard toggles a different menu. Now, this doesn't make for a highly sophisticated way to toggle between menus, and if you're interested in something more like a mini menu with buttons you can press to move back and forth between different menus, let me know in the comments, and if there's enough interest, I am toying with the idea of a 4th video where we could include that. In the meantime though, let's create a new C# script and just call this one Toggle Skill Tree. We can begin by getting rid of the start method, though we will hang on to update. And here we just want to make a public canvas group reference, which we can call stats canvas. That's how we're going to toggle this thing on and off. And we also need a private bool, skill tree open. We can initialize this to false, and this will just be what keeps track of the current state of our menu. Now in the update method, we're just going to do a check. So if there's an input, which is get button down, toggle skill tree, make sure you spell this exactly as we did in our input manager. And whenever we do push the button, we're just going to check to see if the skill tree is already open. We'll also have to write some logic for the case where it is not already open. Now, if the menu is already open, we're just going to set our time.timescale back to 1, which would unpause the game. Make our canvas's alpha go to 0, meaning it would become invisible. And finally make it so it no longer blocks any raycasts, meaning we would be able to detect clicks on other menus. The other thing we just want to do is toggle this skill tree open bool so that it now knows that it is false. We can then essentially do the exact opposite in our else statement here, making our time scale 0. Our canvas will become fully opaque at 1. We can also turn blocking raycast back on, which will enable interactions with that level. And finally, make sure that our skill tree open is true. All right, so back in Unity, you can just click on your skills canvas. We can add that toggle skill tree script on there. Make sure that it knows which canvas group it's toggling. And now we can head into our game. However, you may have noticed something that I did not, which is that my level seems to be going up and down randomly when I do a test. The reason for this is because somewhere along the line in my experience canvas on the slider component, I clicked interactable, making it so that left and right button presses toggle the slider back and forth. So I just need to turn that off. Sorry about that if that caused any confusion. There's just one small thing to fix. When we get in the game, we can see that pressing 2 does in fact toggle our menu. However, when I attack, I get to attack once and then never again. So let's quickly fix that. The reason this is happening is just the way we've set up our player movement script, which is a little more of a player controller dealing with a bunch of different things the player can do. And in our update method, we have our slash being toggled when we push it. All we need to do here to make it so that this doesn't happen that first time is just add one more condition, and that is that if player combat is enabled equals true. Now, if it's turned off, we will no longer be able to attack, not even that first time. All right, as a final setup, we'll just click on our skills canvas, make sure the alpha is set to 0 to start, and that block raycast is also turned off. All right, so now when I get in the game, pushing left and right is no longer toggling my experience. I can press 2 to bring up my menu. However, when I'm in the game, if I press my attack key, there is no attack happening, not even the first time. I can press 2 now to unlock the combat ability, leave this menu, and now I have the ability to attack. I can battle a few enemies, gaining experience each time. And when I reach a full level, I can go back to my menu and notice that my ability points are back up to 5, even though I spent that point at the beginning there. I can update, giving myself more max health, but eventually running out of points. All right, that's working. I hope you found this one helpful. If there's any special skills or additions you'd like to see to the system, let me know. If there's enough interest, I will make a 4th and final video where we just look at some extensions. Otherwise, I hope to see you in our next video, and until that time, this is Matt with Nightrun Studio. Cheers.